Chapter 4. The next day.
Aerith awoke the next day alone in her bed. The soft pelt that she had fallen asleep under was gone as well. She half expected Cloud to be here, but there was no trace of him. It was as if he had never been there at all. She did not understand how she slept well that night either. Never in her life had a man been in her bed with her. Not as if anything happened, but the prince was bold. Aerith wanted to tell him to leave, but she was indebted to him for saving her father. Despite the uncomfortable feelings, she did fall asleep eventually. She then got up from her bed. Coming to the closet, she peered inside at the fine dresses. Reluctantly, she stared at each one, unsure if she wanted to wear clothing that did not belong to her. The young princess thought about wearing the dress she wore to the palace, but before she could even retrieve it, there was a knock at the door. Moving towards the door, Aerith wondered if it was the prince. He did, after all, want to give her a tour of his palace. Not wanting to keep him waiting at the door, she quickly wrapped a robe around her to hide her rather revealing nightdress.
Come in.
Tying the silk robe tightly around her, the door opened, but instead of a prince, 3 women entered the room. 2 had jet black hair, while the third had honey blonde. Aerith looked shocked as they entered. Of course the prince mentioned his servants to her, but why would they serve a wolf? It was quite puzzling.
Hello. His Highness asked to see if you were awake. He said you had a restless night.
Aerith felt her cheeks burn. They knew that Cloud was in the room with her. What did they possibly think of her? She was a proper young woman. Aerith was about to state that she found the prince's boldness unacceptable when the shortest girl with black hair circled around her.
What are you doing?
Could Chris not be a bit big on you? Tifa, you're going to have to adjust them for her.
Just a snip and a little tuck.
Would you like a bath, princess? It is ready if you like.
Or would you like to eat first?
Wait!
As Aerith covered her ears,
Who are you?
the 3 girls looked at Aerith, then slapped their foreheads in union. Aerith gave them a look. They must have spent a lot of time together.
I'm Tifa.
Yuffie!
I'm Elena. We are Prince's servants. We take care of all his domestic needs, cleaning, cooking, sewing and such. Oh, I don't think we are fragile. The male servants like to think us weak, but we can stand on our own 2 feet.
Wait, what?
I can see this is all happening fast. Here we'll explain it all on the way to the bath.
Tifa ushered Aerith out of her room, followed by Elena and Yuffie. The 3 servants explained that while they did the domestic chores around the castle because the males refused to, they were still strong and not prissy little girls. The men did the harder labor, which they claimed were the men's jobs. Elena thought them as chauvinistic pigs at times and easily put them in her place. Tifa even told her how she punched out a male servant named Rena, which caused Yuffie and Elena to laugh. Aerith thought all 3 women were beautiful. She could not imagine them in a fight. Then again, she was raised to be a proper woman. She could never imagine herself in a fight. After shyly stripping her clothes from behind an oriental screen, Aerith wrapped a towel around her body before entering the tub. The tub was filled with hot water and with the top covered in flower petals and bubbles. The 3 servants had readied it with floral bath oils and soothing salts. Aerith lay in the large tub which she could swim around if she wanted to. The soothing oils and salts tingled against Aerith's skin, opening her pores and making her feel refreshed. As she enjoyed the peacefulness, Elena took her hair, causing her to snap from her relaxation. Aerith moved away, startled that the women were still there.
What are you? Why are you?
She moved near the center of the tub, submerging herself so that she was only seen from her eyes up.
We're helping you wash your hair.
Placing her hands on her hip,
Didn't your servants do that back at your castle?
Aerith felt her cheeks burn. The servant who helped her bathe was her nursemaid who took care of her since she was a child. Aerith was comfortable with her, but she hardly knew these women.
Oh, come on! It's kind of sweet. Stop being so difficult.
About myself, please.
Let's go. We're making her nervous.
Tifa pushed Elaine and Yuffie out of the room, giving Aerith her piece. The young princess sighed, and it submerged her entire body underwater. The bath was amazing. She was used to having bath oils and such, but these were different. Aerith popped her head out of the water. She stared up at the ceiling, her mind pondering everything. A wolf that was rich. He had servants, very fine furnishing and such. No, Cloud was not just a wolf. He was a man who spent the night lying in her bed. Aerith quivered. Thinking about Cloud next to her made her uneasy. He had not even answered her questions when she had asked him why he had to be in her room that night and why he would not let her see her family. She wondered if any of the three women might be able to answer her questions. Quickly she finished washing and wrapped a towel around her wet body. Moments later the three women returned. They set Aerith down at a vanity where Elena was taking care of her hair. Tifa began wiping the excess water off her. Yuffie was holding out a dress that they had prepared for Aerith. It was a simple red dress. When Aerith dressed in it, it hugged the curves of her body and flowed at the hips. It reached down to her ankles. Aerith had tied Aerith's hair partially, leaving most of it loose. Her hair curls rested down her mid-back.
Wow!
You look gorgeous.
Well, we can't keep the prince waiting. Come on, he has food waiting for you.
As the four of them walked down the hall, Aerith admired how beautiful the castle was, but her questions still lingered in her head.
Prince Cloud? How come he will not let me see his human form?
The three girls halted. They looked at one another uneasy.
I think that is for His Highness to say.
But he wouldn't. Why is that?
Yuffie opened her mouth, but a gurgling noise came out. A noise similar to the one that when she asked Cloud the very question.
Well, he...
Oh look, the dining hall. You better not keep His Highness waiting.
With that, the three women scurried off. Aerith stared after them in confusion. She entered the dining hall to find the wolf prince sitting by a window. When he heard Aerith entering, he turned his head towards her. He got up and walked towards her. Aerith kindly bowed to him, low to the ground.
Stand, princess. You need not bow to me. We are equals.
Your Highness?
Cloud. I wish for no formalities, princess.
They call me Aerith. Cloud.
He nodded and walked towards a long table furnished with a silk tablecloth, silver bowls, plates, and crystal glasses. The silverware was tucked away in a cloth napkin. The morning breakfast looked delicious, complete with porridge, warm biscuits and jam, meat, eggs, fruit, tea, and juice.
Eat your fill, Aerith.
He was still unsure about using her name. Aerith went to a chair. The wolf followed her, and with his head moved the chair up for her. Aerith smiled at him.
You are quite the gentleman.
As she sat down, the wolf pushed the chair in for her. Next, he took a seat opposite of her. The two ate quietly until they were full.
I would like to take you on a tour if you wish.
Aerith nodded. She got up and walked along next to Cloud, following him out the door. Cloud's eyes lingered towards the princess. She was busy looking at the castle architecture to notice his stare. Cloud had to admit she looked beautiful. The prince showed her the entire palace. He showed her his library, his ballroom, and such. Once they finished the inside tour, they exited to the outside. Outside, he showed her his garden, which Aerith immediately enjoyed. She enjoyed the roses, taking in their scent. The prince watched her quietly. Happily, she was in better spirits than the night before. He moved next to her as she fingered one of the waxy petals.
You like flowers?
I love them. We had a lovely garden at my home, but nothing compared to this. That was amazing.
My servants would be pleased to hear you say that.
Aerith smiled. Cloud looked away at her infectious smile before the two wandered deeper into the garden. Aerith was enjoying beauty when voices interrupted the two. Cloud let out a low growl and walked off into the opposite direction that the two were heading to, find several men arguing with Elena, Yuffie, and Tifa.
You idiot! You ruined the entire patch.
I didn't ruin them. They're just under the fountain.
You knew when we planted the flowers there.
There was no sign.
Yeah.
Yes, there was. There's standing right on it.
The men all looked down to see a sign lying on the ground. Soon after seeing the sign, the fight erupted again. As he walked towards them, he disliked such scenes, especially in front of his guests. He cleared his throat, gaining the attention of everyone there. Quickly, they all bowed out of respect to the prince.
I take it there's a problem?
Nothing we can't solve.
Everyone else nodded in agreement. Cloud nodded his head and looked back towards Aerith, who was standing far from them. It was not her place to intrude. This was not her palace. However, two of the three males were moving towards her.
Hello.
I'm Zach.
I'm Reno.
Aerith looked mightily shocked. She looked even more shocked when both men grabbed one of her hands and kissed it, causing the third man, who was older than anyone, to intervene. He grabbed both Zach and Reno by the shirt collars and threw them back to the ladies.
Whoa!
Sorry, my name is Sid.
Aerith held out her hand and he gently took it.
I'm Aerith.
Cloud moved alongside them.
I was giving Aerith a tour when your little argument broke out.
Everyone looked a bit nervous, shifting and looking away from the prince.
Well, sorry, Your Highness, but Reno built a new fountain over the rose bush.
What I mean is keep it down.
He looked over at the princess and nodded his head towards her.
Shall we continue?
Before she could answer, a bald man wearing sunglasses came rushing into the garden. With a quick bow to the prince, he quietly asked the prince to speak privately. Aerith looked mildly confused. After a moment, she saw Cloud nod and returned to her.
Forgive me, princess. There are several issues I need to address. I will have to cut the tour short. My servants will escort you to your room.
Is something wrong?
Do not worry. It is a minor concern that I must attend to.
With that, the prince took his leave, leaving Aerith with his servants. Aerith found the servants incredibly friendly. She enjoyed talking to them and listening to their humorous jokes and stories. They seemed more like a family than a group of servants. They even gave Aerith the rest of the castle tour before setting her down to lunch. Aerith asked them to join her when she found out Cloud would not be joining her. They stayed and entertained her. Aerith did not only meet but also get to know Tifa, Yuffie, and Elena better. She also got to know the rather flirtatious Zach and Reno, and former pilot Sid. The bald man who had earlier talked to Cloud was a man named Rude, who was also Reno's best friend. He was a very shy and quiet person. She also met an older man named Barrett with a strange gun arm, and his adopted daughter Marlene, who was a sweetheart. She also met the head guard of the palace, who on first sight nearly caused her to faint at his rather scary appearance. The guard named Vincent was a pale-faced, red-eyed, ebony-haired man with little to no expression on his face. He reminded her of the captain of guard, Sung, only much more serious, if that was possible. When dinner came around, Cloud was once again nowhere to be found. The servants continued to entertain Aerith until sunset, when Tifa escorted her to the bedroom in the tower.
Is His Highness busy?
As she asked to Tifa as they walked.
He has his duties that he must fulfill.
They walked up the spiraling steps, Tifa holding a lantern to her hand, Aerith looking down at the steps.
Will I see His Highness tomorrow?
I'm sure you'll see him soon. You seem to take a liking to him.
Well, he lives so abruptly, but I was wondering if something is wrong.
The raven-haired girl smiled wider. When they reached the chamber doors, Tifa opened them and stepped to the side to allow Aerith entry. Aerith entered first to find her fireplace already dimly lit. She turned her head away from the fireplace. It was then she noticed on the table was a large crystal vase with what looked like nearly 50 red roses. She circles the table to look at the rose and found each one perfect in full bloom. They were a lovely addition to her room and seemed to brighten up the room.
The prince ordered them to be placed here for you. He hopes that you will enjoy them.
Thank him for me.
If there is anything you need, ring the bell. Good night, princess.
When the door closed, Aerith began to feel lonely again. This room felt more like a prison. She wished there was a window or that the fire would remain bright. Quietly she undressed into a different silk nightgown. This one was a sky blue and white that hugged her bodice snugly. With nothing else to do, Aerith sat on the bed and pulled the covers over her. As she lay there, the fire began to burn out. Aerith wondered if she should have brought a book from the library. When the fireplace light finally burned out, Aerith closed her eyes in an attempt to get some sleep. She began to nod off when she felt a weight on her side of the bed. She sat up straight, clutching the covers to her. Her eyes were wide open, but she could not see the person in front of her.
Hello, princess?
Aerith scooted away from him.
Why do you run from me?
Why do you come into my room? I am not a woman. He just sleeps with a man. She hardly knows.
Princess, I'm a prince and I hold myself to be honorable. I will never do something that would disgrace you.
Then, please, leave this room.
I cannot do that, nor can I tell you why until the time is right.
Aerith frowned. Suddenly she felt something fall into her lap. Trembling, her fingers searched for the item. It was the soft pelt. The pelt Cloud wore that felt softer than any silk or velvet she had ever felt, and yet so warm and inside. She lay on the top of the fur, closing her eyes. Across the bed, Cloud was smiling in his human form. When he felt Aerith calm down, he lay next to her and gathered her in his arms. Cloud gently shushed her as he held her. She should have felt more uncomfortable in his arms, but she did not. Somehow she felt safe and warm like this.
In time, Aerith, I will tell you everything.